support summer?
Yeah, let me get into that a little bit. So, this has been a really interesting subject for me. All I'd heard prior to running for this position and really doing my research was that a lot of parents just didn't like the current calendar because it did even to the summer. But one thing I found interesting is that one of the reasons they decided to I guess scale back the time that school starts was so when Christmas break got here, students wouldn't have to worry about studying for their 2-week off break during Christmas time. They would be done with their first semester, essentially. And so it allowed them to enjoy their Christmas break instead of spending 1.5, 2 weeks, however long it is, studying and worrying about finals when they came back. That's one aspect, so I believe that that's been very helpful. Secondly, as far as students that are involved in athletics, they found that it became a lot easier when the school year was earlier for students to have transportation to and from practice because school was already in. So they would, earlier in August, they were able to go ahead and have practice right after school and be picked up just as like they would any other time during the school year versus practice starting a few weeks beforehand and having to make special arrangements in the morning time or the daytime for the parents to get off work early or whatever the case was to take them to and from school. So I think those two reasons alone have proven to be very effective in creating more efficiency. So I think that the way that the calendar is set up now seems to be working decently well, and I understand it's one of those issues that you're never going to make everybody happy. I mean, no matter when we start the school year, there's going to be someone that complains, and that's just a part of public service and a part of being a governmental body. But I do believe that the way it's done now does make sense if we're talking about the students' education and extracurriculars.
I think about daylight savings time. Some people feel that we really don't need it. Changing time. I hate to see the young students out there in the cold and in the dark waiting for the school bus. And in some cases, the school buses have to make several rounds. So they have to pick up early, drop the students off, go back and pick another route, pick up students off. If I remember correctly, when I was in high school, elementary, we didn't have any 2-hour delays or early outs. The buses put chains on, we put galoshes on, weather was that bad, I moved on, didn't think about it.
Yes on the calendar or no?
Well, I'd have to look at that, study that a little more carefully, just how that calendar is adjusted. We're mandated, I think, no less than 180, but we have to hit the 180-day level.
No, still not.
I think the calendar starts way too early. And every year it seems to get earlier and earlier, and I don't see any benefit to it. I know, there is the theory that if we can get, that first half of the year done before the Christmas break, the kids won't worry about it. I mean, elementary kids don't worry about that anyway. And they're a good portion of what, the students are. So, and if you look at some of the inconsistent heating and cooling issues we have, I don't want to go super early in August and, extend, into June. As far as we can. I like the more traditional calendar. Let's start as close to Labor Day as we can get it, and let's get it out as close to Memorial Day as we can get it. So until we can get a lot of our infrastructure issues fixed, I don't support the earlier and earlier calendar.
We look at the calendar. We look at the calendar every year, and I think two years ago we looked at the calendar. We voted that we would have this calendar present calendar for 3 years. Again, it's ever changing. The legislature there's legislation out. We're not for sure what we're going to have to do, but we're going to have to tweak the calendar. I realized when I went to school, we were out the Memorial Day and we started after Labor Day. But, you know, with the additional days of school, we've had to lengthen the calendar. You know, we put that thing out for comment. Kanawha County Schools, it's on the website, people can comment on it, and we had them to vote on it, and it's not an overwhelming majority of people support it. It might be 55-45, somewhere in that neighborhood, percentage-wise, and you just make the best decision you can with it and go. And I know it's inconvenient for some people, but again, as Mr. Kavanaugh said, a lot of the student population likes the idea of finishing up the first semester before Christmas and not have to worry about having exams after they come back from Christmas vacation. I have an open mind on that calendar.
I'd like to follow up on that. I got the impression you're talking about going to school or year-round calendar.
No, I'm talking about the traditional calendar.
Okay.
When they start and when they end.
Okay, but let's talk about, you know, some schools, I believe Edgewood Elementary and Piedmont Elementary are on a year-round calendar.
Mercy.
And Mercy Snow.
Edgewood's not Mercy
Oh,
Snows.
Edgewood is not Mercy Snows. Okay. Okay. So, sorry with you, Mr. Crawford. How is that working? And
It's still 180 days school.
right, but I mean, do the parents seem to like that better? Would you
Well,
consider moving that to additional schools?
You know, we leave it up, give the parents an opportunity to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And
At
it
each
has to
school?
be about, I think it's 80% have to favor the year-round calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And I will give you an example where they had a year-round calendar in Marshall County and at John Marshall High School and at the, I think it's Cameron High School that's also there. And the kids at Cameron come over to John Marshall for vocational school. And they were on the traditional schedule. It messed up. It was inconvenient for the children at Cameron because John Marshall was closed and they were open. You see, and Ron, the superintendent, talked about it after I was in Ohio County to a meeting of the school boards in that Risa area up there and heard the discussion they had. I come back and talk to the superintendent about it, and we decided not to do it because we were talking about putting Capitol High School attendance area on a year-round program, and we decided against it because of the problem we'd have with the vocational school.
Is it working okay in the elementary schools as far as
It works well in the elementary school. The people there like it. But again, if parents want that year-round calendar, they have an opportunity to vote on that and decide for the LSIC group is where that would take place.
thoughts on your calendar? Trying it somewhere?
I'm fine with not leaving it school by school. You know, Kanawha County is a big, diverse county. You know, some rural areas, you know, may not want that just simply due to distance, or, you know, my primary concern would be HVAC issues. In a lot of these older buildings, you know, you probably don't want year-round.
HVAC
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, you know, a lot of you know, the older schools, you know, they probably don't want that. And I know that there are concerns about, you know, well, you know, we feed more kids over the summer, you know, like these kind of things, which is fine. Let's leave it up school by school, but, you know, the kids and the parents that are at the local school, you know, will know whether or not that they can do it. So leave it up to them.
Would you support or want to change?
Well, I'd like to see how the year-round calendar would be. Would it be adjusted because of holidays? I know during the summertime, when most parents and students plan their vacations, they have that time allotted. But I'm not certain just how the 180 day, how we're meeting that and have a year-round calendar. I'd like to see how it's set up.
I'm a parent of a year-round child. My children go to Piedmont. For us, for our family, it has worked just fine. Now, having said that, I fully believe in localizing decisions at every single opportunity. I believe that it should go to vote at every school. If there's a desire at that local level from, again, I keep on using these terms, but the end user, the customer, the student and the parents, if there's a desire there, then they will show that through a vote. So I can say that, Piedmont's been a year-round school for 26 years, I think now, maybe 27, and it's worked very well there. I've heard a couple comments about HVAC issues and whatnot. We've been there for going on almost 4 years now, and have yet to see any issue with the children being subjected to hot temperatures in the schools. Air conditioners have always worked fine. But again, I do believe that is one of those decisions that should be made at the local level. I can make the joke that our beach house we had was $6,000 cheaper at the end of September because that's during the intersession. It's at the end of September, beginning of October. But as far as retention is concerned and the educational component, and as we all know, it really comes down to how the parent works with the child at home to get the 100% well-rounded education, and we work really hard with our kids. The retention level we found has been great, where he has 3 weeks off and goes back. But I also understand the value of summer. So again, I think it comes down to the desire of the parent and the student.
I just want to follow up, Adam, on you said you don't like school starting that early. How are you trying? How would you get around that? Would you compress the school year to get rid of spring break, or try to make Christmas break 1 week instead of 2 weeks? Would you move the calendar back to let out later into the summer? I mean, how would you?
There's a lot of different ways we do that, and it depends on the year. It depends on what day Christmas falls on. If Christmas is on a Wednesday, traditionally schools get a longer break than they do if it falls on a weekend. We still do the whole week for Thanksgiving. We have a lot of teacher instructional days that I don't think are very beneficial for teachers. I think they go in a lot of these meetings and it was not worth a meet. So we seemingly start earlier and earlier every year. We get out about the same time. Depending on when Christmas is, depending on when Thanksgiving is, depending on how many teacher instructional days that we have, I think we can chip some of those out.
Kind of brief follow-up, just real quick. I think that this is another great example. Mr. Crawford mentioned that the opinion was, the question was brought to the public via the Kanawha County Schools website, and obviously there was a response. I don't know what percentage of the total population of parents responded to it. But again, I think this is one of those areas people want to be heard. If you go on Facebook, and I can go on Facebook any given day, or Twitter, and someone is complaining about the school system. They do that because they don't feel like they have an outlet to effectively communicate with someone in the central office. When in fact they probably do. It sounds like we have an outlet on our website to do that, but it's not being communicated, if I can go back to my original point, properly. So I can't reiterate the importance of having a liaison that is constantly focused on the information that's being disseminated from the central office to our public, to our parents. And I think that's another prime example. I would imagine the results of that particular survey could have been tripled if there would have been more communication going out from the central office. And that's not so much a board decision that needs to be made at the staff level. And as long as the board has put the policies in place and and allow for the position to exist, I think that we could see some real change there.
The board can do that themselves. The county commission doesn't have a communications director. Or, a lot of our municipalities don't. I'm against hiring these additional positions. When we should be spending the money in our classrooms and our teachers.
Just to do voters a favor, can you explain what districts are played here? There are 2 seats. One is currently occupied by Mr. Crawford. One is occupied by board president, Ralph Rector, who is leaving the board, right? Mm-hmm. So 2 openings, and maybe just an explanation of the districts to play. There can be as many as 2 from a district.
Mm-hmm. So right now, Ryan is in District 1. I'm in District 1. Mr. Carpenter is in District 1. So I guess in that scenario, whoever received the most votes would, in District 1.
There could only be 1 more from District 1.
Correct.
There are 2 candidates.
Correct. And there are already 2 in District 2, 1 in District 3, and none in District 4, if I understand correctly.
So, all right. You 2 would be in District, let's see.
It's tough.
Carpenter and Carpenter
Yeah.
are District 1.
Yeah.
Candidate's District 1. Mr. Knopf?
I'm in District 4, which is areas of the West Side Hill, Elkview, Clendenin area.
And there's not currently a...
Robin Rector is, but she's leaving.
But she's, okay, so you wouldn't have an issue versus...
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
And Mr. Crawford, with District 3, you're in District 3, so you wouldn't have an issue either.
But it's an at-large race, so
But
the
it's
entire
not-
county.
so
top
both,
votes.
you got top 2 votes, you would both be in as well. Both.
No,
No.
that's
Only
what
Oh, because
can.
there's already one.
Right, and just because you're in District 1 doesn't mean as a voter you can't vote for someone in District.
Okay. And so the current members, or who will continue, I should say, of the Board of Education, was Ryan White, Becky Jordan, and that's all right.
That's, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You have anything else down there? I've got one more question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Knopf, what do you have against the standards that are aligned with the Common Core? Can you tell us why you don't like them?
Well, I want to see everything controlled as locally as possible. And, with standards come from, especially the federal government, that's really not, conducive to what our local ones are. And,
These
ideally,
standards
a lot of
don't
times
come
the-
from the
no,
federal
but
government.
even the state, federal standards are worse than state standards in terms of how, I want them to be controlled as local as possible. As Rick says, I want to have as much control over as we can. Secondly, we spend too much money, chasing after a lot of these standards. I think it could be the same.
Okay, very good. How about you, Mr. Kavanaugh? What's your opinion on the Common Core aligned standards?
So as you know, right now, what is in place, first of all, it is not changeable at the county level. It is a state Department of Ed through the legislature. The state Department of Ed has created those standards, and they adopted sort of a different version called West Virginia Next Gen Standards, which are aligned with Common Core, but not exactly every single bit Common Core. So having said that, one thing that many probably don't know, and I've learned this from doing my research and speaking with administrators and faculty, is that every 6 years there are groups formed consisting of educators, administrators, people at the state level to help shape the curriculum for the next 6 years. It is already, to some degree, a collaborative process to determine the curriculum that is going to be taught at the state level. Counties don't have a ton of flexibility as far as the curriculum is concerned. They have to implement what is given to them at the state level. They are given some flexibility in the processes they use to disseminate the information and to teach, but as far as the benchmarks they have to hit and how that's compared against state standards, there is a statewide process for that. And while I don't agree with every single bit of it, we do have to have a mechanism in place that shows student performance, and it has to be measured the same for every single student. So, I'm glad to hear that there is already a collaborative process, and it's not a 100% bureaucratic process as far as how the curriculum is set. And as far as I can tell, and in speaking with some administrators, they feel pretty comfortable with it as far as what they're teaching. And I understand there's been some controversy as far as how the math problems are calculated and whatnot. But I'm also about innovation, and I'm about knowing that we can't always do things the exact same way we've always done them. Again, we're in a changing economy. We're in a global economy, and we have to make sure that our students are as competitive as possible.
So keep them?
The next gen standards, the way they are now, as far as I can tell, the process they have in place, this collaborative process they have, I feel like is working well. As far as I can tell from the faculty and the educators. And as a parent, I haven't, and I do homework with my son every night, and it's so far seems okay. So I think unless we see that it's deterring learning at some level with our students, I think what we see now, these edited version of the Common Core, these next gen standards, seems to be working decently well. So.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, what's your opinion on the next generation Common Core aligned standards?
Actually, what's happened here is that the legislature gave the state Board of Education direction and the state superintendent direction, and they held meetings throughout the summer last year, and as you well know, and they have realigned the core curriculum, Common Core curriculum, and it's now called Next Generation, and they gave us the freedom to go back to teaching math the way we have in the past. And actually, as Rick has said, that local boards have no flexibility as far as the curriculum is concerned. You're told from the State Department what you will teach. And basically, when you take the oath of office, you say that you will fulfill your duty and go with the law, so that you don't really have much choice. I know one of the questions that you've been asking is about teaching of evolution. Mm-hmm. Well, we do teach that in our biology class, in conjunction with biology in the 10th grade. Now, as far as as global warming, it's up to the teacher's discretion if they want to bring that in as something extra, but it's not in the curriculum.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Crawford, do you support it or not?
Well, I have to support what's in the curriculum.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think, I support the Common Core also, but the thing about it is that the textbooks are different locations, and how those subjects are taught varies. Now, from what I understand, the latest that we received information on from the legislature was that, we really don't want to talk about global warming or climate change. A lot of people say yes, it is changing. Others say it's not. And I think at this point it should be taught that that's a theory.
Okay.
And it may become a fact one day. It's just like when I was in high school, we had a theory that, well, one day we're going to send a man into space, or to the moon. Right now, I have a theory that eventually the moon will become a large landfill.
All right. Anything else down there? On that bombshell. Thank you very much for coming. Good to see you all.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Turning off.